with a movie like this is how brutal filming in the water for such a long time must have been. And I know each of you had a different number of days. So, like, how many days did you guys spend in the water total?
Was it like 3 weeks or something? I don't know.
You keep
Roughly.
saying weeks. We were there for 3 months. Where are these weeks coming from, Marshall?
So before the shit hits the fan, the four of you have a very fun dynamic. Did you guys hang out before filming to try and build up that rapport with each other, or was it just natural? And I know this is more of like a free-for-all question. I'll have more focused ones later.
Well, I'll just start and say Marshall, I think, hung out with everybody before in a sense. Like he reached out. He was the care bear of the group, aka Stalker. But yeah, he's great. So Marshall, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Terrence. You're being very, being very sweet. I did not know Terrence before the shoot. I ran into Quentin at the gym. We live about a mile away, and then I've known Zach for about 20 years. We've run into each other a few times and have, been in contact.
Oh,
We never
wow.
worked together until now. But those beginning scenes were after doing all of the water tank stuff. So we were in the water together on this boat, freezing and yelling and screaming and crying and just really going through it emotionally and physically for weeks. And then we got to stand on land and talk. And it was just, which was like, oh, this is how most acting is. This is so much easier. So yeah, that dynamic really came through after everything we went through together. So I like that we got to do it in that order.
Well, and Zach, you portray Nick Schuyler in the film, and he's also a producer here. So were you able to talk with him at all about his experience?
Yeah, I was able to get on the phone with Nick a few times before we started shooting, and just pick his brain and heart and assimilate as much as I could from his experience. It was a very traumatic experience, and as we all know from trauma, that can really affect one's ability to recall certain details. So Nick was able to share with me as best he could what he could, recall, what he was feeling, what he was thinking in those moments. And then Nick was also able to come and visit us on set. He and his wife Paula came and visited for a few nights while we were shooting, which was very surreal for us and for them. But I think, really at the end of the day, when you're telling a true story, and in our case, Nick was the only survivor, and also Paula, who was in the movie as his girlfriend, and but was very much, intrinsically involved in all of this, as she was praying and hoping that Nick would be, alive during all of this. And so, even getting to talk to her a bit about what they were experiencing, I was grateful that I got that, which was a lot more than Terrence and Marshall and Quentin got, unfortunately, because their counterparts are no longer with us. But I think that they did a fantastic job in bringing them to life and honoring them to tell their story in their stead.
Well, that was actually what I was going to ask next was Terrence, Quentin, Marshall. Obviously, you didn't have the same privilege. So, like, what kind of background were you able to do on Cooper and Will and Marquise?
Yeah. For Marquise, I did a lot of just obviously read the book, but then did a lot of just online research that I could find, and I was able to find a few things. His high school kind of did a tribute video to him, I believe, when he, I don't know if it was got the offer to Washington to play or whatever, and so got to hear some friends talk about him and stuff like that, and then obviously did the research of the story and just all the things I could find. And then I think for me personally in my life, I played football in college, so at a major university, and I know a lot of people who went to the NFL, and particularly knew a lot of people who went to the NFL and were on the kind of undrafted free agency, trying to get in a team every other year type of path. And so knowing their stories, knowing how that affected them, how that affected their family life, I was able to bring in that kind of personal side of it to Marquise. And then, just kind of adding the things that I felt he would have had from what I felt the friends said about him, whether it was, how loving he was, how big he was, personality wise, and things of that nature. And then you just, after that, you go with the script and you go with the people around you and the other actors and what they give you, and then you just let it fly after that.
Yeah, so I didn't have a ton of access to Will's video, or he didn't really have much of a digital footprint, and I didn't have the opportunity to talk to his family. So it was really Nick, the book, the script, and then just the situation in each scene, and then just combining that with who I was at that time in my life, and that's the character. So I'll pass it to Terrence.
I'll say the same thing. He didn't have a digital footprint as well, but just taking in the script and the book, and just knowing that we had Joe there to guide us, like it was pretty easy to lean in and just try to honor somebody that stories needed to be told. So it was pretty cool to let's just lean into it, and then the environment itself pushed you into becoming somebody. So yeah.
Well, and the first thing I think of with a movie like this is how brutal filming in the water for such a long time must have been. And I know each of you had a different number of days. So, like, how many days did you guys spend in the water total?
It was like 3 weeks or something. I don't know.
You keep saying weeks. We were there for 3 months. Where are these weeks coming from, Marshall?
I'm saying like three or 4 weeks of straight water, like every day.
I felt like it was every day, but it's how many? I don't even know. I think you and Zach were in the water longer than us, right?
We had an extra week or so, yeah, and then
yeah. So I think Zach and then Zach ended up being in longer, right? But we can tell the story because
yeah. I mean, listen, it was a long time. However you slice it, it was a long time, and also, it's one thing to be in a water tank. It's another thing to be in a water tank that's full of cold ocean water. It's another thing to be in a water tank with cold ocean water, mostly at night. Mm-hmm. And then you add the wind machines, the water machines, the wave machines, the water cannons, like all of those things. I mean, it's intense. It's an incredibly intense experience. I think it was partly why all of us wanted to experience it, though, right? Like, doing acting, regular acting on land, that kind of thing. We all get to do that. That's normal. That's par for the course. Very rarely do you get the opportunity to go and get challenged in this way. And I think it's important as people, as men, to go and be challenged. And I got that challenge. I'm grateful I had that challenge. I don't need that challenge anymore. But it was full on.
Yeah, and also just to throw in, we were on 6 of 7, so it was 6 days out of the week. And when we got to those night shoots, I do believe that was, I think, 3 weeks straight of that. And it's just, that's kind of like, that's when it starts to feel like more than it is, because it's just night after night after night after night after night, and your sleep schedule is off. So it really felt like, you're going from whether it's 5 p.m. until 6 a.m. and then you go right back to sleep, and then you're right back into it. I was, when I get back home and then the sun's out, so it's not necessarily the best sleep. You're in a foreign country, so your timeline's off already. Oh. And then I would be dreaming like this, like that my bed was moving, like I was still in the water. And so it really did kind of get to this thing where, reality got altered a little bit. And it really did kind of feel like you were just like endlessly in this tank, and and it's the dark of night, so you're in water and you look out, you don't necessarily see. I mean, we can see obviously the lights and the people there, but if you look out, it's just water around you. You can't feel the floor underneath you because it's at 8 feet, 9 feet, whatever it is. So like it felt it was definitely a unique experience, one that again I'm extremely thankful for. But yeah, it felt like a while out there, especially that 6th day. I don't know what it is about going from 5 to 6 and only having that one day off that really makes you feel like, oh, we're really getting it.
I know you guys run a tank, but there's this famous story about how on Waterworld, the cast and crew kept getting seasick from all like back and forth like of the water. So their solution was ginger snaps, and you guys do a lot of rocking back and forth on the boat. So how did you guys deal with seasickness?
Ginger snaps. Nobody had ginger. Okay, I know that next time, but I'm not.
Next time.
Yeah.
I don't ever feel like I got. Yeah. No, and I typically will, if I don't take some Dramamine or something like that, I'll typically get a little seasick if I'm out on the ocean. I never felt like I ever got like actual, motion sickness or seasickness, but you do end up getting this kind of, your body's doing a lot of this, and so at night you will still feel a little bit of that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't. When we were in the tank, I was fine. But there was that one day that we went out on the ocean, and they brought the stunt guy. And I'm like, why is the stunt guy coming? Like, we're on the ocean. They're like, just in case you get seasick. I'm like, I never get seasick. And that was the day I got seasick. And I was like,
I remember that.
But it was so pretty. It was a beautiful set.
Oh my God.
The water, it was unreal. But
it's a different sensation though on a boat, because I think you're just dealing with that. Whereas when we're in the water, there's just too many things to deal with. There's just so much going on, and I think it was this kind of controlled chaos that Joe created, where I think all the elements were enough to be a problem, and then he kind of just combined some like mind games that I feel like, I don't know if we needed them, but but they definitely added to like the what's going on. So yeah, there was a lot to deal with, to not be worried about, getting a little nauseous.
Well, that's all the time I have. Thank you guys so much for talking to me today. This has been great. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Yeah,
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.